like at 3:15, so I might have to like punct sign off. Like
yeah, no, I have to go 3:15 too. I have another shiur afterwards. Okay, let's begin from the beginning. Okay, this is written in Tafresh Tzadik Daled 1934. Nehenesi mi biurcha shel Marta. The Rebbe's father says to his son, the Rebbe, I enjoyed the explanation that you told me, that you wrote to me about. Al HaMaimer Azal, in regard to the saying of the sages, Berabba, it's a Gemara Megillah, Berabba v'Rab Zera, Rabba and Rab Zera, she'ochli b'sudis, Purim bahadadei. Rabba and Rab Zera ate the Purim meal together. V'sheshochte Rabba l'Rab Zera. The Gemara says, Rabba slaughtered Rab Zera. B'chlal ha'inyan korev mi'od le'emes. Reb Leivik, the Rebbe's father, says to the Rebbe, your explanation is overall close to the truth. And I explained yesterday what I think the Rebbe's father means by that. I don't want to repeat it. V'zachruni, and I remember shedibarti korev lezeh, that your explanation that you wrote to me of explaining this Gemara, I believe I have a recollection that when we had spoken about it, when you will get in our house in 1927. Yes?
I'm sorry, quick question. I know you don't want to explain it, I get it. But the English footnote, number 4, is that sufficient? Because I missed that from yesterday, the truth, that explain about the truth.
Yes, that's sufficient. That is sufficient. I'll just say it in one word, but that is sufficient. And that is that truth is called Kabbalah. Kabbalah is called Chochmas Ha'emes, the wisdom of truth. So what I was saying is that possibly the Rebbe's father is saying your explanation wasn't kind of as Kabbalistic as mine is going to be, and that's why it's close to the truth. And we know from the Rebbe explained this Gemara once at a Fabrengen. It's printed already in Lakutei Sichos. If you haven't learned it, you owe it to yourself and your family to learn that Sicha. Get a Chavrusa, learn that Sicha. But the Rebbe's Sicha, and it's in English by the way too, it must be translated in English already. I don't recall which volume of Lakutei Sichos, but it's one of, there's very famous Sichos of the Rebbe. This is one of the famous ones. How the Rebbe explains this Gemara. Because the word is Rishachat. I mean, everyone asks the question, right? What does it mean that Rabba slaughtered Reb Zera? I mean, does this make sense? So there's a Marsha, I believe, that says, there's another Gemara that says, Ein v'shachat. Shachat really means he uplifted him. And the Rebbe explains what that means, that he uplifted him. He elevated him to a higher level, hoping that he'll be able to tolerate a higher level of godliness. But so the Rebbe explains it more, I said yesterday, in drush, like sermonizing, medrash. Reb Leivik, as we see here, explains it more in Kabbalistic terms. So possibly, this is my own explanation, because it doesn't say it, it's very brief. He just uses the words that you're writing, your explanation that you wrote to me is Karev Mioid Le'emes, is very close to the truth. What do you mean? Why isn't it the truth? I mean, if it's correct pshat, you understand it should be the truth, not close to the truth. So I'm putting an explanation into the wording of Reb Leivik. Again, I could be wrong. It could be this is all my own theory and Baba Maisa. But what I'm saying is that the reason possibly it's only close, very close, not just close, Karav Miod, very close to the truth, is because truth is pure, truth is called Kabbalah. Chochmas ha'emes, because Kabbalah is kind of straight from God. Everything else has human intervention. Now, of course, we say the words of the rabbis are inspired by God, the rabbis are inspired, it's all true. But nevertheless, there is the element of humanity as the middleman to the truth. Then there is the truth. And you see, when you learn this and you don't understand a word that's being said here because it's so Kabbalistic, it's the truth. It's a secret. So let's continue. Oh, well, do you have the Rebbe's father's letter?
No.
Oh, it was sent on. I sent it Motzei Shabbos on the WhatsApp. You have that or not?
I don't know. Maybe Moshe can send it to me.
Moshe, can you send it to him now?
Yeah.
Okay, Moshe's sending you. There's two documents. One is a PDF of the Rebbe's father's letter, which we're reading from, and then there's an a Word document, an explanation of the letter that my friend and I learned together, and he wrote up.
Right. Okay, so you're doing the letter, the PDF now.
I'm doing the PDF now, and we're on the Shmuel. Good morning. We're reviewing quickly because the Chevra asked to review it quickly. So we're now on the third line, where Reb Levi says, I remember that while you were here, we discussed this, and I said yesterday that was in 1927, at least then. That was the last time the Rebbe was home with his parents, so I guess that's what it means. Anyway, let's continue now, third line, in middle of the line. V'gam roshem etzli mizeh. I also made notes of this. B'medrash mizeh b'medrash Rabba b'Megillas Esther. The Medrash Rabba on Megillas Esther, when the Rebbe's father learned that, he made notes of these comments that he and his son discussed. Avi, you got that? V'efsher. Okay. Yes, Shmuel. I don't hear you, Shmuel. You're on mute. Shmuel, you're on mute.
Okay, how about now?
Now is good. Now is no good.
Oh, how about now?
Now it's good.
In 1927, the Rebbe was 25 years old. This was a long time before he became Rebbe. He was a young man.
That's right.
That's how all this was being discussed and developed at such an early time.
That's right. You know, if you look into the book early years, you know, for years we didn't know this. For most, when I was a bacher and even a younger man, I didn't know this. But now that the book came out, you can kind of track where did the Rebbe get his education. And the early years, you must have seen the book, Chevra. You could actually see he had a malamed here, a malamed there. And some say he did go to the yeshiva in Yaktinislav. Some say he didn't. I mean, you got to really, it's very methodical and detailed, and you got to look here and there. But one thing's for sure, that what we always heard that he learned with his father too is a given. I mean, a father like that, learned with and these type of things, Kabbalah oriented. Was definitely something that he got from his father. Because, I don't know if you know this, but before they really knew who he was, the Hasidim, they criticized him for learning so much Kabbalah, because in Chabad, it's Hasidus, not pure Kabbalah. And they didn't understand that really, Rabbi Yoel Khan has told me and told others that all of Rabbi Levik's Kabbalah is found in Likutei Torah and Torah of the Alter Rebbe. You just have to know Likutei Torah and Torah very well. And the way such a genius of a person he was able to put it all together. And he did have the liking for Kabbalah, so that he expressed it mostly in Kabbalistic terms. And the Rebbe, you should know, from 1970 on, when he started to explain each time if I bring Shabbos, a comment of his father on the Zohar. I mean, Jonas, I'm sure you were there, and you must remember, he always said, what does my father want with this practically? In addition to it, sharing what his father said, but what do we have from this? Like Moshe always asks, like, okay, this is this, and this gematria is this gematria, so big deal, so what? So so when you say, Shmuel, that he was 25, that's right. He was very young, but he had a father learning with him. Remember, he didn't leave home. Like you said, now 25, right? That's 25 years. That's a lot of time that he was basically with his father. He went a little bit here, went a little there, but he was pretty much with his father, Yaktinislav. So they had a lot of time to learn together. And I think when we learn such a letter and more of such letters, you'll see that some of the Rebbe's style later in the Sichos are based on this overall style. This idea that everything is this is this and this is that. There's a similarity. That whole style, which, by the way, is not a traditional style. You won't find the Soloveitchiks learn Torah that way. You won't find Hasidic, Polish, Hungarians learning that way. It's a very different style, and I've asked Hasidim about it, and they've told me that it seems like some part of the Rebbe's approach to Torah learning is his father's style, which makes sense. Let's go back to the text. So he says, V'efsher, we're now going on to the fourth line. V'efsher shari'isa shama. He writes to the Rebbe, he says, and maybe you saw my comments on Medrash Rabbah of Megillas Esther. Maybe you saw what I wrote there. Okay, period. Gamba HaKuntris, he says, I wrote an essay, a kuntris, called Maridaya de Libris, which is a Gemara in Bava Metzia, the oar made of cypress wood. We're talking about when a ship came in, it had a large oar, and with this large oar, it steered the ship to the dock. Okay? So the Rebbe's father wrote a whole essay on that concept. He says, I sent you that essay before Purim. And over there, in a very brief way, I alluded to this idea of Rabbi and Reb Zera. Okay. However, you should know. So it is more correct. So it seems like he's maybe backtracking for what he wrote over there, which we don't know what it is because we don't have it. But he says what's more correct is Sherabe Reimes al Moichin de Gadlus Kishmoy. I said yesterday that maybe Yoser Nochin is also because this is more the Kabbalistic insight, which is more than the drush, the sermonizing. So maybe that's why he says it's more appropriate. What is that? That Rabbi, the name of the rabbi who shechted Reb Zera was Rabbi. Rabbi represents large. Al Moichin de Gadlus. Kishmoy, like the name Rabbi. The Reb Zera, the student who was sitting there, Reb Zera, Reimes al Moichin de Katnus. It represents a small intellect. Kishmoy, like the name Reb Zera, because the word Zera means small. In the parentheses, V'oila b'kona echad. Both comments, both what I'm saying now to you, Rabbi Levi is writing, and also what I said over there in that essay that I wrote, Sherabba hu p'chinas chsodim, that Rabba is chesed, v'Reb Zera p'chinas gvuris. So it looks like this is something that he wrote to the Rebbe about in that essay, that Rabba represents kindness and Reb Zera represents gvuris. So he says over here, both interpretations go together. V'hainu. This explains another Gemara. This is why it's in a parenthesis. V'hainu. Masher Reb Zera ma'il lo'sochak. Reb Zera never smiled. He never laughed. Kimavur b'drashas Razal, as the Razal say, be'uvda de Reb Yirmiyah shoy imay. There's a story with Reb Yirmiyah sitting together with Reb Zera, and umavur b'zeh b'rishima de igre chamohi de Reb Elazar b'sechtes Menachos, as explained elsewhere. But basically, the Gemara says Reb Yirmiyah tried getting Reb Zera to laugh, and he couldn't do it. And Reb Zera wouldn't laugh. Me'olam loy sochak. He never laughed. Right? So he says here, why not? Look now, end the parentheses, look after the parentheses. Ki moichin de gadlus heim p'chinas chsodim. Expanded intellect is chesed, is an abundance of kindness. Shmois Hashem, Yudke Vovke. Umoichin the Katnus, small intellect, Temprinas Gvuras is judgment and severity. Shemas Elokim, the name Elokim. So he's saying, I think he's saying, that the reason why Reb Zayda didn't smile is because he was Gvura. He was always being, in a judgmental and severe way. So he didn't smile. That's, I believe, the connection. Let's continue. Moshe, are you with me, or are you just looking and you're in a daze?
Yeah,
okay.
I'm trying.
Okay, if you don't understand something, please ask me. I don't want to just say and stop me, and I'll try to explain again. Okay. The Rebbe's father says to the Rebbe, then your question that you asked me, again, we don't have the letter, what was the question that he asked, but let's see if we can figure it out. Then your question, Sarah, is removed. Kush Yosech, your question. Oh, I think we know the question, Shmuel. What's the question? The Gemara says that in Brachas, Rabbi was a mover of mountains. He tore out, he ripped out mountains, meaning he was such a masterful, powerful in Gemara and being able to reconcile seemingly contradictory ideas in the Gemara. So he was able to tear out Moshe mountains. It's an expression. What does that imply? That implies... Oh, 1 second. At first glance, that implies Gevura. Right? What's Gevura? Strength, Koyach. Rabbi was such a powerful thinker and understander of Torah, he was able to tear out the mountains. So the Rebbe, that looks like the Rebbe's father's question. In other words, you, father, are telling me that Rabbi is chesed, the Gemara says he was Eiker Harim. So the Levi now reconciles it and answers the Rebbe, and he says, Ki Adarab, on the contrary, Pchinazu, this level of Eiker Harim, of tearing out mountains, who mitzad moichin the godless, that comes from a super expanded intellect. It doesn't come from Gevura, it comes from high, intense intellect. So it's not the notion of Gevura. I should say it this way. The manifestation looks like Gevura, Yonason, right? He's tearing up, it's like they say, the Soloveitchiks, when they sit down with a Rambam, the joke is they would roll up with the sleeves, let me now take apart a Rambam. You know, that idea of Gevura. I'm going to show the Rambam what the Rambam really is supposed to mean. That's the joke in the yeshiva world, But it means the intensity that they use in learning a piece of Rambam. The Rebbe's, if I'm learning right Pshat, the Rebbe's father is saying, no, it's not. The outer manifestation is Gevura. But what it is really an abundance of Chesed. Moichin the Gadlus. And Moichin the Gadlus is Chesed, not Gevura. That's what he says. V'shchite, now, yes.
Why can't you say it's the Gevura of Chesed?
You could, maybe you could. Okay, fine. Yeah, but I meant Gvura, not Gvura of Chesed, but you could say that maybe. Again, when it comes to Kabbalah and levels and this and that, I'm very careful. He doesn't say it, I won't say it, but possibly, okay. Okay.
This expression of
Eiker Harim
is Kabbalah.
No. Eiker Harim is Gemara and Brachas. You look into the English footnotes, Moshe. You got the English?
Yeah.
Look at the footnote there. Doesn't it give you a footnote? It's a Gemara and Brachas, right?
Yeah. Okay, got it.
Okay.
Yes, Shmuel.
The Gemara discusses two types of intellect. One is called Oker Harim, which is like a very thoughtful, interpretive process. The other is Sinai, which has a very vast, expansive memory and can pull up things.
Right. I remember that Gemara Shmuel from Haidius, but it looks like it's found in Brachas first, so he gave the reference for Brachas. Did you all hear what Shmuel said? It's important. Shmuel said the Gemara talks about two different types of Talmidei Chachamim. One is the type called Oiker Harim. He tears out mountains. He's very sharp that way, very witty, The other one is called Sinai, meaning he remembers a lot. He has the information. His strength is not in reconciling and all of that, in the pilpul, right? His strength is just in quoting. He knows the sources. So that's called Sinai. So here he brings the Rabbi was known as Oiker Harim. So the Rebbe's father says, why? Not because he's Gevura, but because he's the expanded intellect, Meichen the Godless. That's what he says. Let's go on.
This is the Gemara that's on the left. This is the Gemara that's on the last page of Brachos, I guess. I guess so, because I'm looking at it, trying to find it in the Gemara. It's okay. I just want to make sure I'm on the right.
Hold on. We're give me a second, please. Number 10, he gives here Bracha 64a. Is that the last page?
I think so.
Okay, well, whatever. Whatever. Okay.
That's what it is. Okay.
Let's go further.
Thanks.
He says, now, the Gemara Megillah said that Rabbi is sitting with Reb Zera v'shochte, and he slaughters Reb Zera. So now the Rebbe's father starts addressing shochte, okay? V'shochte v'shchita hu b'simonim. When a ritual slaughterer does shchita, he has to shecht the kona, the windpipe, veshit, the esophagus, and vriden in the jugular vein. Shehem hagimul moichen de katnus. According to Kabbalah, they represent the three small elements of intellect. Ki yadua, as is known, bahagimul sari pari. We have three ministers of pari, right? Mashkim, the butler, Ephraim, the baker, Tvachai, the one who did with the shchita. So it's explained in Kabbalah that the three ideas of the ministers that work for Parai, it's similar to the idea of the three areas which need to be shechted in order for something to be kosher. The Inyan zeh, okay, he's still in the middle. The Inyan zeh, and this idea, shayach beyichud lepurim, is specifically associated with Purim. In other words, the question that the Rebbe's father is answering is now, what's the connection between Shechita and Purim? You could shecht every day of the year. Is there any special idea? In other words, the fact that they were sitting on a Suda in Purim, and he decides to shecht him, is there any association? The Rebbe's father says, yes, there is. There is a special connection between Shechita and Purim. And what is that? That's why he says, beyichud, specifically to Purim. Shuam tokas moichin de katnus aydei moichin de godless. The concept is called the sweetening of the smaller intellect by the expanded intellect. Basically, the strength of chesed will sweeten gevura. So what do we understand from this right away? That the process of shchita, although it looks like it is shechting, slaughtering, the purpose of which is to sweeten, to transform. And now I think he's going to explain how that is in Kabbalistic words. But he's already told us the nekuda of where he's going with it. Shalochein, misparoi hu gimul pamim Hashem Elokim. How much does Purim equal, Yonason? 336. If you take 3 times Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, which is 26, and 3 times Elokim, you will get exactly the gematria of 336. Ugam gimel pomim Hashem Elokim sheloi hayisi. Hayisi. I think this is a quote in English. Does he give us a reference for this or not? Where is this a quote from? Does anyone know? 3 times 112. The gematria was Silakut Torah. I don't know. Okay, let's go back. V'ayim b'Likutei Torah la'Arizal. Look in the Likutei Torah of the Arizal, not the Alter Rebbe. This is the Likutei Torah of the Arizal, Parsha Vayeshev. V'haynu b'chinas nes hamalubish b'teva k'mavu b'reshima de'beridai delivris. He says here, I didn't explain this yesterday. There is a miracle, listen to this, there is a miracle that transcends the Chatter's convention, like the Red Sea and all those. Then there's a miracle like Purim, if you don't put all the story together, it doesn't seem like a miracle. It's because it's enclosed, it's hidden in the nest. That's one of the reasons why we dress up and we hide ourselves, right? So the Rebbe's father is saying here that this activity of moichen the gadlus, sweetening, the transforming the moichen the gadlus, is associated with 336, which is the gematria of Purim, which is also the gematria of 3 times Hashem and 3 times Elokim, but it's hidden. In other words, that's why Hashem's name. This is the word. I got it now. That Hashem's name is hidden in Purim. You understand? Yes, Shmuel. Shmuel, you got to unmute yourself. Shmuel, we don't hear anything. Shmuel, you're not unmuted, Shmuel. Okay, I'll go further. Let's go weiter. So Moshe, again, you understand? What's the point? Listen to this, Chevra. Purim equals 336. But in the skies, Purim has Hashem and Elokim, the 2 names, which is the Mochen the Gadlus and Mochen the Katnus. But it's all in the skies. It's Purim. That's the point he's making. Let's continue. He says also, the fact that Rabba shechts, he slaughters Abzeda, who al derech Akedas Yitzchak Shavram, it's similar to the Akedah, the binding of Yitzchak der Avram, which is Prinas Chesed, Avram, whose kindness, Rotza Lishchet es Yitzchak Prinas Gvuros. Why, Moshe, why did Avram want to shecht Yitzchak? Hashem said so, right? What's the deeper understanding? Because Avram represents kindness and he wants to get rid of judgment. Yitzchak represents judgment. So he wants to transform judgment to be chesed. So just like, so too here. Avi, why did Rabbah slaughter Reb Zera? What was his intent? He wanted to change him from being sour, not laughing, judgmental. He wanted to make him freilach. Now you see how you could take a piece of Kabbalah, which is so Kabbalistic, and it's such a practical idea. You come to the Purim Suda, and you got some people who are, give them a drink, make them happy, make a joke, let them get a bit of freilach. Transform Kavura into Chesed. That's what was going on here. So that's why the Rebbe's father says that the idea of Rabbah shechting Reb Zera is analogous to Avram wanting to shecht Yitzchak. Let's continue. And he says, I'm skipping the parentheses. Now, after the parentheses, the first word is V'shayach zeh lePurim. V'shayach zeh lePurim, and this is relevant to Purim, Ki Haman uvanav heimalu umas d'Avram v'Yitzchak, because Haman and his children are the opposite of Avram v'Yitzchak. Shezeu Amaymer Azal, and the Rebbe's father brings support to his idea. She'ema de Avraham, that the mother of Avraham, ve'ema de Haman, and the mother of Haman, Shmoisayim Shavos, their names are similar, right? Like I told you yesterday, it's in the footnote in the English. Both of their names start with Karnavoy. I'm sorry, with Amasla. But their father's names were different. So that's what he says. You look up exactly in the footnote the precise names. It's there. But the point is, their first names were the same. So that's why he says there's a similarity between the name between Haman and his children. Why? Because the mother of Avraham and the mother of Haman, their names are similar. Lahoiros, continuing the Hebrew, back to the text. Shahaman hu al-umas de Avraham, that Haman is the polar opposite of Avraham. Okay? And I'm skipping the parentheses here. You have it in the English if you care to. We read it yesterday. Now, the next word is V'ho'ayin hey. Avi, that means, and the 75. V'ho'ayin hey elef. 75,000 were killed. Shahargu b'neis de Purim. Do you know that 75,000 people were killed at the time of Purim? That's what the Gemara says. V'ho'ayin elef shahargu b'neis de Purim. Hu b'schus ho'ayin hey shana d'Avram k'shiyatzu mecharan. How old was Avram when he left Charan? 75. So, in merit of the 75 years that Avram listened to Hashem and he left Charan, it protected his grandchildren later when 75,000 were killed. That's what he says here. Now, Shecharan hu moichin de katnus. Charan, anger, wrath, is coming from a place called the small moichin, which equals Gimel Pamim Elokim, 3 times Elokim. The Oayin Hey Shona and the 75 years, Reimes, it alludes to Alam Tokes HaMoichin, the Katnus, B'Moichin, the Gadlus. The sweetening, the transforming of the Moichin, the Katnus, the small intellect through the larger intellect. Shehu Misper Oisiyos, the Gimel Shemes Hashem Elokim B'Miluyin. Okay, here we're going also too Kabbalistic. We'll leave it for now, right? Okay. Go till after the next line, after the word Parshas Lech Lecha, right after that. So far, we know that the 75 years of Avram when he left Charan was the antidote to the 75,000 that were killed later during Purim. Right. Now he says a similar idea we have from Esther. Gam Esther ha'isa bas ayin daled shana. How old was Esther at the time? 74. Kiminyan Hadassah. Right? The Gemara says Esther was called Hadassah. Hadassah equals 74. Kishenil kechal beis hamalchus. When Hadassah was taken to the royal palace, she was 74. And he says, Shehula neged ho'ayin hey shona d'Avram. Okay, now we have a rule in Gematria that when something, one of the systems and ways of doing Gematria is you take the numerical equivalent of the word plus the word itself. So if Hadassah equals 74, that's the Gematria. Plus the word itself is 75. So the Rebbe's father saying that in Esther 2 we have a number of 75, just like the number of 75 that we spoke about earlier of Avram leaving Charan, meaning vacating small-mindedness, negativity, judgment, not smiling, and all of that. Let's continue. שהוא נגד העניין של אברהם, כמשקוסף מדשרה בפרשת לך לך שם. והוא המתוק השם אלוקים באוסיס הקודם אלוהי. Okay, I'm skipping this. Okay, go to, after 2-3 lines down, the last 2 words on the line. V'hoyu lahaman. It's 6 lines from the bottom of this page. V'hoyu lahaman reish chesbonim. Now he says, the Gemara says that Haman had 208 children. Must have had many wives. Kimispar v'rav. Right? V'rav. In the Megillah it says v'roiv echov. So it really says v'roiv, but if you don't count the middle vav, because you don't need it for pronunciation, you can read it choser vav. Kamay merazal. Heim halu umas de Yitzchak. Oh, the 208 children of Haman are the negative opposite force of Yitzchak, whose gematria is also Reish Ches 208. It says by Yitzchak, I will multiply your children. Arbe. What's Arbe? How much is Arbe? 208. Correct? The word used in the Torah for multiplying Yitzchak's children is Arbe 208. Arbe Zare ve'etin lo yis Yitzchak. No, Hashem says, I will to Avraham, I will increase your children, and I'll give you Yitzchak, which is 208. Skip the parentheses. Actually, we'll stop here. Tomorrow we'll finish. We'll stop right here. So, I think, I hope it was a little clearer today, even though we didn't cover all the parentheses and all that. It's very Kabbalistic, and you have in the letter if you care to really follow through. But the idea is that I see a pattern here. I see a pattern in the Rebbe's father's letter. He basically is saying, the general Nakuda is that Rabbi, who's chesed, who's moichin the gadlus, will transform the negativity of Ze'era, which is moichin the katnus. And he says that this takes place when we have this type of a scenario, and that's why we find the number 75 and 208. In other words, different numbers and gematrias that are relevant to Purim. He explains how it's all part of the same idea. So, in other words, you see, when you learn the Rebbe's father's letters, you got to keep the idea. The idea is pretty simple. It's just the gematrias and things get very complicated. Yes, Moshe.
Forgive me, I have to go. Forgive me. Thank you.
We're finished. Sei gesund, everyone. Have a good day. Hatzlach. We'll see everyone tomorrow. Bye-bye. Okay, Dvarlea, now the computer is yours. You see? I'm so nice.